Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 6 o'clock. If we could make a start. If I could welcome you all to this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee. A special welcome to Councillors Buttery, who is tuning in from home, and Councillor Unsworth, who are attending the first Scrutiny meeting. I'm sure you'll enjoy it as much as we all do. The meeting is taking place in the Civic Centre for members of the committee, with some members dialing in via Teams and the meeting broadcast via YouTube. Please could members use your raise the hand feature to speak at the appropriate time if you are dialing in on Teams, and mute when not speaking. There are no fire drills planned at the Civic Centre. If the alarm goes, please leave by the nearest exit and gather on the grassed area. And could you all please switch mobile phones to silent? I'm glad that's on the list. Otherwise, I would have been one of the culprits. So, apologies for absence. I've got apologies from Councillor Will Adams, Councillor Matt Trafford and Councillor Jackie Alty. I believe Matt Campbell is with us on Teams. He is now. Right, that's it. Any other apologies? We're all here? Yeah. In which case, do we have any declarations of interest? No. Item 3 is minutes of the meeting held on Thursday, the 18th of March 2021. Can we agree those as a true and correct record? Moved, seconded, yeah, all agreed? That then takes us to item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting held on Monday, the 14th of June of the Scrutiny, Budget and Performance panel. I wasn't actually here, so I don't think... Did you chair that, Karen? No. It's for note, right. If we could note that then, thank you. Item 5, matters arising from previous Scrutiny Committee meetings. Before we do agree those and accept and implement, before we do agree those that are accepted and implemented and by removed from the list, I think we have a number of questions on this item. Yeah, Councillor Green.
Thanks, Chairman. Do you want to take them page by page, or do you want us to raise them all in one go?
If you could raise them all in one go. Okay,
I'll do my best. Okay, so page 12, minute 19.8, the committee requested information on the council's land ownership. That's come back to us with further clarification. So could we formally request a copy of the council's land and property asset register listing the buildings and any pieces of land owned by the council, please? Yeah, I don't know what other clarification they would actually want. We have requested a list of what we own, and I would expect that to be available. Councillor Thomas.
Thanks. I mean, I'm happy to say we are in a position to provide that. We wouldn't have been until quite recently because the council's never had an up-to-date register, but it includes hundreds of tiny pockets of grass verges and corner plots of land. So I think the clarification was, are we talking about, you know, the significant stuff that we own, or do you want to see everything? Because we own about, I think it's 93 different buildings, but then we do own the history of the central new towns, and the leaving South Ribble whenever it was has left us with literally hundreds of tiny little plots of land. I can let you, I believe we are now in a position to be able to let you have those if you want them.
Right, I will seek some clarification from committee members on that as to exactly what we do want.
Okay.
Otherwise, Councillor Marty might be planting pumpkins all over the place on these small plots of land that we can't get at. So. Councillor Green.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Thank you, that'll be helpful. Page 13, minute 28. We requested a member briefing be held on the Climate Change Action Plan, which we're going to be discussing this evening, and that commitment was given that it would take place before it went to full council. I know it's going to Cabinet. I'm assuming it's going to full council, so I'm just wondering when the member briefing will be. And also on that page, minute 36.3, the update we've received regarding leisure is an update in anticipation of the transfer taking place in April. We're now in July, so it would be helpful to have a more current update, please.
I believe that might now be forthcoming.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to that recommendation, Jonathan Node, our Director of Development and Planning, has just sent an update through, and he reports that this is being undertaken as part of the Central Lancashire Local Plan. Draft policies should be consulted on in early 2022 and adopted by the end of 2023, and he will keep the committee updated. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on matters arising from previous scrutiny meetings? Karen?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a comment really that we've raised this issue previously, that there are still many items not resolved from July 2019, which is many months ago now. So I think some of the items really need an update from the officers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that item? No, in which case, if we can move on to item 6, which is the Community Safety Partnership Scrutiny Report. If I could welcome Chief Inspector Mark Baines, who is the Chair of the Community Safety Partnership, Councillor Mick Titherington, our Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing, and Jennifer Mullin, Director of Communities. It says who will present the report and answer any questions. I don't know if that means all of you or one particular person, but whoever would like to start.
I'll introduce it, Chair. Thank you for that. We've also got with us Heather Carson, who is the Community Safety and Safeguarding Manager. I join with you in welcoming Inspector Mark Baines. I don't know how long you've been with us, Mark, but is it 2 months or so?
Thank you for your kind welcome. I officially arrived in February, but I was still doing another role as well. So I was double hatting for a while that I had to kind of, but yeah, since kind of mid to end of March, I've been in post with responsibility for Chorley and South Ribble. So it's good to be here.
Yeah, so welcome for that, and I think the fact that you've been here since February probably qualifies you for a long service award here at South Ribble, because we've had a number of inspectors, but you know, we do welcome you to South Ribble and look forward to working with you. I want to just thank the officers who've produced the report, which gives an overview of the CSP's purpose, approach, and the actions which are all ongoing. But I think first thing I want to say is that South Ribble is a safe place to live and has a comparable low crime rate. And I think we all should be reassured about that. But I also want to thank the partners in the Community Safety Partnership for the sterling work that they have done during the pandemic, as well as working collaboratively in reducing the spread of infection and helping to reduce the spread of infection, mitigating the impact of the pandemic, and at the same time dealing and tackling the causes and effects of crime. The report covers a number of items and issues, all of which are designed to provide the safe and secure environment in which our communities can live and which we all desire. It's a comprehensive report, so I'll leave it there and we'll take it. I think between us we should be able to answer any questions that the committee has. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps if I could start then, what's the learning been for the Community Safety Partnership following the COVID-19 pandemic?
Sorry, Chair.
Do you want me to repeat that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what learning has there been for the Community Safety Partnership following the COVID-19 pandemic? What have you, what's come out of that you can add?
I think the learning generally has been that you need to rely on your partners, that we've had a really good close partnership relationship with the police and the council and others, and we wouldn't be able to deliver it without that partnership. I don't know whether you think the same way, but that's what I found, that we've been working together. We've been doing joint patrols, joint visits, park visits, business visits. We've been working on the COVID Local Zero together. So there's been a really good, reliance on partners to be able to deliver what we have done over the COVID pandemic.
I would echo that, Chair. I would also add about the kind of unpredictability of demand now in terms of the whole shifting sands around, pre-pandemic, we would have all been pretty comfortable of saying where particular police demand and partner resources needed to be on day of the week, hour of each day. I think that's changed significantly. I think if you look at the footprint around licensed premises, that's changed. If you look at some emerging trends around homelessness, that's changed. So I think we need to monitor it as a partnership moving forward and be a lot more flexible actually in the months coming as we hit the 19th next week and moving forward. So I would echo what Jennifer said, but I think we really need to be fleet of foot moving forward with the change in demand.
Okay, thank you. Karen?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. Could you explain how the partnership assesses its effectiveness and ensure robust governance arrangements are in place?
Well, I shall take that. I may be the chair of the CSP, but I've not chaired a meeting yet. From my point of view, and I'm in a good position actually because I'm coming at this with really fresh eyes and learning all the partnership roles. It would seem to me that there's really robust governance in place. I think there's some real key accountability. I think there's some fabulous relationships. I've been absolutely amazed since I've been at Chol in South Ribble with the close working, not just from the neighbourhood teams, but immediate response teams with our partners, with local authority and other partners as well, all of which is documented, all of which is available for public scrutiny. And what I think a lot of my neighbourhood teams are seeking to do is to communicate that to people as well, to give that transparency. Now, you may have seen a lot of our social media stuff over the last couple of months, some of it light-hearted to try and lighten the mood and get some key messages across. But I think a lot of that was all about key partnership working and communicating to the public, actually, that we are accountable. There is some clear transparency and we're doing some work with others as we move along.
Yeah, just to agree that that's the case. Obviously, the crime figures are the things that really tell us if we make a difference as a partnership, but also that the work that we do on community warning notices, the work that we do as part of the SRIT, we do have quite a lot of data and intelligence that we've got looking at reduction in crime, the reoffending boards. So there's quite a lot of governance arrangements and statistics that we collect with regards to the partnership. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Thanks, Chair, and welcome everybody. Question 3, page 18, bottom paragraph. What is the relationship between the Lancashire Community Safety Partnership and South Ribble Community Safety Partnership? The paragraph goes on to the next page saying, South Ribble's preference is for a thermic model. Why is this when South Ribble usually works towards and a graphic neighbourhood model with our services? So it's the models used, there's 2 models mentioned.
So this is the Lancashire Community Safety Partnership. So this is the sort of Lancashire County Council Central model. So we've been consulted from Lancashire County Council about their model. So that links into our Community Safety Partnership, but doesn't dictate our Community Safety Partnership. What they want us to do is how we link into their model. So there's been 2 proposals, the geographic and the thematic. We've put forward the thematic because we think that would be a lot easier because we've got lots of different officers doing different themes. So whether it be domestic violence, reoffending, so we thought it would be better to be a thematic. So that's what we've put forward as a proposal, that we would like to be a thematic. The geographical model would include, it would be specific to, I think, central Lancashire. So I think because we thought with our officer specialisms, it would be better to be a thematic, and we could concentrate on the themes of in each group. Okay.
Colin?
Yeah, welcome everyone. I'm looking at page 19. Towards the bottom it says integrated offender management reducing reoffending. What measures are in place to evaluate the success of this?
Well, if I can just make a comment on it, and I don't know, others might be able to help in terms of evaluating it. I mean, I think the purpose of the scheme is obvious to everyone, is that we want to seek to reduce the reoffending rates, and that involves a multitude of organisations and issues that are involved in it, in terms of obviously finding jobs for reoffenders, giving them the life skills to be able to sort of exist in a positive manner outside, in terms of accommodation. And I think that's where we really, as a council, come in. We have had a grant, that would give us, help in terms of to try and get accommodation for these people. But it is a multi-agency approach. And I don't know if there are figures. I mean, presumably there are figures about reoffending rates, but I mean, I think you would look upon it as on an individual basis. For every individual who comes out of prison and doesn't reoffend, I think it is a success story. I don't know if there are figures available for how successful they are, but I mean, I would say it's an ongoing issue, and it's one that's got to be tackled on a consistent basis.
I don't have any figures with me. I can get them put together and come back to you. What I would say about the IOM model, it is a nationally accepted and a national, there is a national move to enhance integrated offender management more into CSP work and police work. The challenge from my point of view is to, I guess, push the right candidates towards that model, because not all candidates will be suitable for IOM. So again, though, there's a slightly skewed, is it a success, is it not? Because we're already pre-filtering really what goes in. There's the obvious headline statement that, if we can stop one offence, well, that's a massive thing. And we can stop one offender reoffending, and that pattern and that escalation and that impact that has on that individual, family, community, etc. That's a massive thing. But in terms of hard stats, I could seek to collate some. I think it would probably come with a health check around quality as opposed to qualitative stuff. But I'll see if with others I can fashion something together and submit, Chair, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, thank you.
If I can take you to page 20. Community protection warnings and notices. How successful has the issuing of these notices been?
Well, very successful. So if you can see the community protection warning notices, which is the first official step, there was 51 of them, and only 10 of those led to the actual protection notices. So they've got the warning, they've heeded the warning. Only 10%, only 10 of them have gone to actual notices, and only one has gone to a fixed penalty notice. So generally, they're very successful. We only use these protection warning notices when we don't have any other statutory legislation which covers it. So it tends to be things that are not covered by other legislation. So they've been really successful, especially in sort of low-level antisocial behaviour issues that we've had.
And I would add to that I think the success of these has now become daily business in terms of the policing of it, in terms of our partnership work, in terms of our tasking model that we have, and community protection warning. That is considered at all times now by police, particularly relevant in this area. I think there's some real conversations about some of that low-level stuff that Jennifer talks about, and I can reassure you that that is considered every day, particularly in the neighbourhood policing teams.
Okay, it's good to hear. Michael.
Thanks, Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Following the election of the new Police and Crime Commissioner for Lancashire in May, have any discussions taken place with him about his new priorities and how these may have an impact upon the work of the Community Safety Partnership?
Not personally, but the new Chief Con, I know from communications we've had, has had some quite detailed discussions already. Obviously, effectively, the policing plan becomes the Chief Constable's kind of roadmap in terms of matching his ambition to that roadmap. There's a lot of internal consultation going on at the minute within Lancashire Constabulary in terms of Chief Con and PCC, and I would expect to see some significant developments around that in the next month or so. So yes, those higher level strategic discussions are taking place, and I think there'll be quite a lot coming out soon.
Okay, thank you. Stephen?
I'd like to take you to page 21, and it's about domestic homicide reviews. The purpose of domestic homicide reviews is to ensure lessons are learnt. How independent are the reviews, and how are lessons learnt?
The review is undertaken by an independent reviewer and is chaired by an independent chair. So it's not chaired by any agencies, it's done completely independently. So the reports are produced independently, and the recommendations are made, come from the chair and the reviewers and the committee themselves. So it's totally independent from the council and from the police. Then it has to be verified by the Home Office. So it has to be submitted to the Home Office, verified by them. They come back with generally, you know, if they feel that there's been any missed actions or any learning that needs to be done. And then once that's been reviewed, it goes back to the Home Office. It can go back to the Home Office several times for their review. And then once we get it back, those actions are agreed by the Home Office and then published.
Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Page 22 again. Could you please talk us through what the South Ribble Integrated Team is? And I note there were 108 referrals from April 2020 to March 2021. How does this compare with other district councils in the area or nationally? Thank you.
Okay, I can take answer to that one. So each local area has an integrated team who's followed a Lancashire model, with the exception to Chorley, who deliver their own successful model. So it's not something that we have done is kind of compared with other areas, because some areas are more advanced than others. Since the council committed to providing a coordinator for the integrated team, we are in a position to gather more information. I did try to see if we could compare to previous years before we had a coordinator in post, and we weren't able to do that. But what was recognised by the attendance by agencies was the flurry of referrals that came through, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic, and the exceptional response that we got from all agencies in kind of identifying those people and putting support in place for them. So at the minute, we've not compared, but if that's something that's wanted, we could look at doing that in some way. As I say, some areas are more advanced than others in setting up their integrated team.
And could you just explain what it actually is?
So the integrated team is providing early help to vulnerable people in the community. So it's before they're reaching statutory services, with the obviously the outlook that it costs more to look after somebody the further down the statutory route that they've got. So it's to get in the earliest opportunity and put measures in place and have a multi-agency approach to that.
Thank you.
Kath.
Thank you, Chair. The police data that's in the report, can you say how that data is used in practice and what practical things are being done to tackle some of the crimes that are highlighted, such as domestic abuse, violence and hate crimes?
I was just going to say, so the police data analyst, before any of our CSP meetings, our actual delivery meetings, produce the plan, produce a data for us to show where the hotspots are, where the issues are, and that data is analysed in each of the meetings to look at ways of we can change our working or to highlight any hotspots. So it might be there's been, I don't know, an increase in antisocial behaviour in McDonald's in Leyland, and then it's looking at what can we do to address that, what actions can be put in place, linking with all our partner agencies, or it might be, I don't know, issues with drugs and alcohol, and we've got the agencies there. So before each meeting we get the report and then we can analyse it and discuss it in the meeting.
Thank you. Michael?
Thanks, Chairman. How does the partnership work with elected members and in particular with the council's community hubs?
I'll take that. In terms of the community hubs, we did have discussions with Mark's predecessor to try and re-establish the neighbourhood policing and to have a direct relationship with the hubs. And we, because we did note that following the demise of the PAC meetings, there has been that sort of distance between neighbourhood policing and elected members. I think that there has been discussions involving Rebecca, as the hub manager, and the police to try and get a more engagement with the hubs, and I think that we'll be pursuing that because I think it is important. In terms of how we engage otherwise, is that well, I've been involved in the consultation on the strategic assessment, where we identify what are important issues as far as the community is concerned. And I think we always have to realise is that there is a dichotomy, isn't there, really, between the rates of crime, the actual rates of crime, and the perception of crime. And in many ways, some of the things that are of importance, and I'm not decrying them, are things like antisocial behaviour and other matters, but there is an underlying thing as well, some of the big things that are going on in relation to county lines and organised crime, and some of those things that you feel you're a bit more, cocooned against it, but like modern slavery and all that. So I mean, if we could get down to a better improved working on a relationship with the hubs, I think there would be a greater sort of information exchange that we can tackle some of those issues that are on the surface, because I know that we do get members will get complaints about suggested drug dealing and other offences. But so I mean, I think it's something that we would want to work on in partnership to sort of develop that, so that there is a closer working relationship between officers and elected police and elected members.
Just to explain that we have had commitment from the police to attend community hub meetings as and when needed, but also we generally, which we haven't had this year, but we do have a conference, a community safety conference that we invite members to. Generally, it's normally sort of February, March time. We haven't had one this year because of COVID, but we will be intending to do it again, so that councillors can come, listen to what's been going on at the partnership meeting, and generally look at the strategic assessment that should be coming in November about what the issues are in South Ribble.
Thanks, Chairman. Thank you for those responses, which are helpful and which I would support. Do we have a commitment from the Chief Inspector to further enhance the engagement with members on a regular basis moving forwards?
Absolute clarity for me that there's that move. We need to get better in that engagement, and I think as important as that is we need to get better at that feedback loop as well. There is a tremendous amount of work being done in this area, not all of it publicised, not all of it spoken about, and there is a need, I think, that I've already identified to build those key networks with councillors, but others as well. If you look at some of the success we're having with Lancashire Talking and In the Know in terms of that feedback loop, the more we give back to people, the more information and intelligence we get. And that is a model that we need to sort of replicate at the hubs as well. So it's got to be a two-way thing, but absolute clarity, full commitment to that, no problem whatsoever.
If I could bring in Councillor Matt Campbell, who is on Teams.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you to Chief Inspector Baines for your time this evening.
Sorry, Matt, we're struggling to hear. I think we might.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's a technical issue that we're sorting out.
No.
Can I come back to you if we? Oh, yeah, I can actually hear you now. Yeah. Yes, fire away.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for your time this evening, Chief Inspector Baines. My question is regarding the catalytic converter theft marking kits that are referred to at the bottom of page 25. I'm just wondering if you've got any data on how many occurrences that we have of this in South Ribble. Is it quite a common occurrence? And are there any talks going on with any other car dealerships to ensure that they install these kits on their vehicles as well? Thank you.
Actually, Matt, are you muted now?
Sorry, Chair, did you hear that?
We did, and if you could please mute now.
Yeah, I muted you straight away. I put my thumb up to say I had.
You were almost getting me off the hook, Councillor, there then. Catalytic converter thefts, as you may know, are a significant national problem. The source of much debate. There are particular cars that are targeted by organised criminal gangs, a lot of them operating out of the more metropolitan hubs, so we get a lot of travelling criminality from Manchester, Liverpool and West Yorkshire. It's a highly lucrative area of business. And it's probably one that won't stop in the short term. So in terms of our catalytic converter thefts, the current partner that we have that will fit these devices, which we've publicised on our website and through our local teams, is Chorley Nissan. We've not had a massive uptake in it, and I think probably some of that is around having to bring your car in and have the procedure done, etc. It is free. We ask for a small charitable donation, but again, you don't have to give that. In terms of geographic breakdown, I don't have a geographic breakdown. We did have some issues initially with people from out of the area wanting to come and get the kit fitted, and we had to politely say no to that. So Chorley Nissan, we provided them with 50 kits, and they've still got a couple of them left. So we have got a good stock of them. It's something we keep pushing. We've done a lot of work with various garages around the Chorley and South Ribble area in terms of trying to legitimately find out who has the most targetable cars. And there's obviously some issues around data protection and all that kind of stuff. We've had cops and PCSOs knocking on doors, saying to people that you may be subject to it, your car may be particularly relevant in terms of catalytic converter threats. And we carry on with that work. And to be honest with you, the Land Pack funding has given us more than enough for the time being in terms of the uptake. I would imagine by the time it gets to the turn of the year, we'll probably be looking for some more kits. But at this stage, we have plenty of kits. We keep publicising it, and it's certainly an area of business that we need more people to uptake, really. Does that answer your question? We have had, I should talk about some success as well. So we have had some success. We are in a really good place now, information sharing wise, with our colleagues in JMP and our colleagues from Merseyside. And this is one of the standing agenda items in those information sharing, intelligence sharing meetings in terms of organised criminality coming and targeting those thefts. So we've had some really good arrests. We've had some quite high profile ones that took place on motorway junctions with people leaving. There was an incident only last week. So it's very much on the radar. The problem solving aspect to it continues. The preventative measures continues in terms of identifying vulnerable people, and certainly the reactive stuff continues. There is a number of tactics I've put in place that I can't talk about at this meeting that are helping us with this particular area of business.
Okay, thank you. Stephen, I believe you have some questions.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, how does the council compare to similar councils with a similar demographic across the nation? I think some of it's already been answered in different questions.
Is that in regards to all crime? I know we're fairly comparable to Chorley, but I'll leave that to the Chief Inspector to kind of discuss as its crime is.
I would say it's comparable. I would say it's low. I would say there's some areas of business that need targeting that we're well aware of, and I think we're in a good place. I think it would be easy to assume that the downward trend on some of the data that you've seen is all COVID. I would tend to agree that the volume is probably down to that, but I think there's some stuff around the edges in terms of tasking, in terms of moving our assets to where they need to be, in terms of the partnership work, funding, problem-orientated policing. You know, if you look at some of the POPs that we've got submitted at the minute in terms of that longer-term approach to problem solving, there's currently 55 live problem-solving initiatives just in South Ribble at the minute. They're all live on Lancashire Constabulary and they're being worked on. So again, I think we're in a good place. There's a bit more needs to be done around targeting and some certain areas of business, but I think we stand any scrutiny with similar areas.
My second question is slightly off the wall. It's something that we used to look at in a wider context, and that's Black Swan. How is you and your partner agencies ready for a Black Swan event, which is a mixture of major events all happening on the same day at the same time? So you have a major crash on the motorway, you have a major incident somewhere in Preston Town Centre, or say like Little Leyland Town Centre, and another major event going on at the same time, say like a football match or something like that. How would you be resourced to look after such things?
You're probably asking the right man, Councillor, as I've just done 7 years as one of the Force Incident Commanders and had responsibility for force level kind of strategic stuff. I would say we're very well placed. I would say we exercise well. We're involved in a number of exercise with industrial partners around the South Ribble area. We have a good, robust command and control system that's tried and tested. Resources have been stretched during the summer, particularly during Euros with COVID, etc. But even with all of that, we've still maintained what we need to do around staffing of immediate response, of neighbourhood policing. What we need to understand here is that it isn't just the local policing in terms of that almost escalated response. So Lancashire Constabulary runs a model of tactical operations. So whilst there might be this kind of mythical bunch of people that work at headquarters, well, actually they're not. They are the people that are doing the roads policing in the South Ribble area. They're the people who are responding to your car cruise events. They are the people who are responding to your football matches, your motorway crashes, etc. So we have a well tried and tested method of escalation. So if you look at my command in terms of I have immediate response, Chorley in South Ribble, and neighbourhood policing, Chorley in South Ribble, then we have that TAC Ops response. Then we have what we call an op response. So if I need it, I can press a button and we draw in people from Blackpool, from the east of the county. And then obviously if that's not enough, then we have this escalation to the regional, regional control centre, which provides us with those resources. So I would say we're very well placed. We've met the challenges really well so far. We continue to meet them. There is discussion on a daily basis in terms of resources, and I would say a large proportion of my job is considering resources, forward planning for resources, and matching resources to threat and risk moving along. And I'll use a very simple local example of that. Easter weekend, traditionally very big on Rivington. We managed to plan in so much activity from partners that there was a massive partnership response to that event, and actually very little policing. So what's good about that? Well, what's good about that is that policing was able to focus on other areas and not be abstracted into dealing with some really low level parking issues, some really low level lighting of fires, some really low level, all that other stuff. So if we get ahead of the game, get other resources there, including third sector resources, then we've got enough. But I'm comfortable, our experience this summer has been really interesting, but we've managed to maintain both an immediate response function, a neighbourhood policing function, and of course a reactive investigative function as well. I've already mentioned talk about regional response. We more than ever now in this area are working with GMP and Merseyside, and we've had some joint operations as well. So again, in terms of targeting forthcoming events, putting plans in place so we're not reacting all the time. That's a really long way of answering the fact that I think we're really prepared for a multi-seated event.
Yeah, thank you. It's a question that a lot of people don't understand, that need to know that it's kind of a security blanket question, that people need to realise that you're not just one thing. You need to, there's a response out there for the worst of the worst, and that's what I was trying to get at. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Thanks, Chairman. A couple of very different questions, if I may. So the first of them is, what can the partnership do to improve road safety across South Ribble?
Road safety continues to be a really impactful thing for our communities in terms of not just fatalities and serious injuries, but road safety in terms of kids going to school, the impact it has on our communities. We get so much feedback, Councillor, in terms of speeding. We get so much feedback in terms of antisocial use of vehicles. We get so much at the minute, particularly seems to be a flavour of the last few months of the car cruise event, the revving engines. We only have to look up the road here in terms of the stuff that happens in Tesco's, between Tesco and Buckshaw Village. It's a massive concern. It's something that's featured in our neighbourhood policing tasking. It's something that we try and prioritise. We bring in our tactical operations unit, some of which are embedded in South Division, which is here anyway, and they run various operations on a weekly basis in terms of targeting problem drivers, uninsured cars, etc. We've had a particularly good response from the community in terms of our op seizure stuff, which is the antisocial use of motorcycles, quad bikes, etc. That continues. That's going to morph into actually a force-wide approach. So Lancon will adopt a brand and we'll adopt the similar tactics. That's going to involve more officers being trained, potentially in more use of powers in terms of seizing vehicles, etc. But the key to all of this has always been reacting quickly to community intelligence, and it's the community that tells us what's going on, where and when. So from a policing viewpoint, road safety is still very much at the top of our agenda, and we need to work more on that as a partnership. We're working in schools all the time. I was only talking to one of the police officers last week who'd done significant work at a local school in terms of road safety and educating parents and educating road users around schools. So it's very definitely still on the agenda.
Karen, did you want to come in and add to that?
Oh, yes, thank you. It was from a minute that we had at a previous scrutiny meeting on the 18th of March about the SPIDs, and it was, could you confirm that the use of SPIDs has been rolled out in the borough at the moment?
Yeah, we've got SPID devices in the borough at the moment, and we can move them about wherever we think that there is issues. I just wanted to add, we have also got our sports development active health team who are doing bikeability training in all our primary schools. So that as well, and we're looking at active travel. So we've got an officer who's looking at travel plans for kids who are in high schools to make them safe if they're going on the bike. We also have safety equipment that we can give to young people. We're also looking at bike maintenance. So there's quite a lot of schemes that are ongoing at the moment within the council as well on road safety in particular.
Can we just come back on that, Jennifer? So if we have a problem in say, my ward with speeding, do I contact you?
Yeah, we can move the SPID device there.
That's fine. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay. Michael, did you have a question about prison?
Thank you. As you'll be aware, there's currently a proposal on the table for a new prison, not in South Hibble, but less than a mile outside the boundary of South Hibble and in the neighbouring borough of Chorley. There are 2 prisons already on that site, I think housing about 1,800 prisoners. The new prison is proposed to have over 1,700 prisoners, so effectively doubling the population and the number of people working at those establishments. Does the partnership have any view, and have they expressed any opinion in terms of the potential advantages and disadvantages of such a proposal?
We haven't discussed it as a partnership, but I have been contacted by Jonathan Node, the Director of Planning, just to let us know that that is an expression that there might be, and it's something that we will discuss.
Okay. Do we have any questions from members not on committee? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Oops. Some of this has already been covered, I think, but do you want me to ask? I've got a few questions, so just ask them all at once. And okay. Page 20, the community protection warning notices and notices. We have had issues, obviously, with the cars, as you mentioned before, with antisocial behaviour with the loud exhausts. We did get one reported. I can't remember the section number. It's either 51 or 55. Where the owner of the vehicle was served with a notice saying that if he offends or gets another complaint, the vehicle could be seized. So I was wondering sort of if that's being used anymore, because I mean, the one I know of is the only one that I know of at the moment. The other one is on page 26, which is the antisocial behaviour motorcycle nuisance. We have an emerging e-scooter issue which has been brought up at Pembrokeshire Town Council as well as by ward councillors, that they are a serious concern with regard to public safety and generally people use them on the road. I mean, I know of nationally 2 deaths that's occurred because of them. So I just wondered whether we're going to look at involving those in the motorcycle issues as well. And the other one was catalytic converters on page 25. I mean, obviously these items go somewhere for processing. It's the valuable metals that come from them. So, I mean, I know you alluded saying that you had operations that you didn't want to mention about, and this might be one of them. I just wondered, is there any issues with that happening in South Ribble? Thank you.
I'll go with them in order. Some of the powers that you're talking around in relation to nuisance motorcycles, etc., a lot of that is covered by road traffic legislation, so it wouldn't fall into the kind of section in those community warning notices. I think what you're referring to is probably section 59 warning, which is antisocial use, etc. All of those powers are exercised on a daily basis by police officers. We are looking at rolling out some training to more police officers to include neighbourhood teams, because not all officers are trained in the use of that legislation at the minute. They can summon support and they can get advice, but we're actually going to look to roll that training out. I can assure you that is legislation that is used every day in Lancashire, and it's certainly used and considered in this area every day. So I want to reassure you around that. E-scooters is an interesting trend. Is it considered within our op seizure and our tactics involving antisocial use of vehicles? Yes, it is. It's a real mixed bag. It's a real mixed message. There are some areas of the UK that are trialling e-scooters on the roads with a view to them becoming legitimate. That's not the case yet here. There are some people who would see them as an appropriate form of transport, but road traffic legislation is quite clear in terms of use of vehicles on the road, the need for insurance, etc., and all the rest of it. So I would argue that there are legitimate road traffic legislation powers in place to use against e-scooters. Is that legislation appropriate to be used in every context? Clearly it's not, and that would be down to the discretion of the officer. And what I mentioned earlier on about trying to get a standardised approach across Lancon, that's one of the themes that we want to address in that, because at the minute we've got different territorial divisions. We have Op Seizure here in South Ribble and involves Chorley, and we're getting a standardised approach. So yes, e-scooters is an emerging trend, and it's being dealt with. And then the last bit about catalytic converters. Yes, we do know where they're going. Are they being dealt with? Yes, they are. Are they in this area? No.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Just to add that scrap metal dealers are licensed by the council, and that we have to review licenses on a regular basis to look at scrap that's come in and gone out. So they are tightly regulated by South Ribble. So I'm glad to hear that there isn't any South Ribble scrap dealers, but they are regulated by ourselves.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members not on committee? No, in which case, if I could ask Darren to take us through recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes tonight that the committee might wish to include in its recommendations include that the committee thanks the Community Safety Partnership Chair, Cabinet Member and Director for attending and their detailed report. The committee welcomes the offer of further information on the effectiveness of the Integrated Offender Management Scheme. The committee asks that the partnership work more closely with the community hubs in the future. The committee encourages the police to engage with elected members more as part of their feedback model, and the partnership considers what more can be done to improve road safety and reduce road casualties and deaths in the borough. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody have anything they wish to add to those? Can we agree them? Yeah, thank you. If I could then thank the Chief Inspector for your attendance. You're more than welcome to stay with us, but if you have other pressing things to do, we would not be offended if you left. Likewise with the officers as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take my leave.
Next item on the agenda is the Climate Emergency Action Plan. Councillor Titherington is still with us, as is Jennifer Mullin, and we also have Councillor Keith Martin, the lead member for Climate Emergency, and Neil Martin, the lead officer. It says may be in attendance. Unless that's a cardboard cutout, I suspect you are. So if you would like to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as you are aware, in July 2019, Council declared a climate emergency, pledging to make the borough carbon neutral by 2030. And in 2020, the Council approved the climate emergency strategy for the borough, in which it was agreed on a public consultation process to inform the specific actions necessary to deliver that strategy. This action plan is a result of the consultation, and I want to thank the officers, the Climate Emergency Task Group, elected members and members of the public, and indeed all who have contributed to the consultation and the formulation of the action plan. It needs to be stressed that this is a live document that has to be agile and able and adaptable in order to respond to the challenges and initiatives that become. That's why any constructive contribution that is intended to help us achieving our goal of being carbon neutral by 2030 will be carefully considered and implemented if at all achievable. Further engagement with businesses and schools, community groups, energy suppliers, individuals and the green economy is essential. I believe that if there ever was an all in it together moment, this is it, and only by working together can we succeed. The plan identifies the actions needed to deliver on our ambition, and clearly we can't do that on our own, and we'll need to continue to lobby and work with central government and other bodies. The plan has been described as ambitious and insular in equal measure, and I believe that is true. It is right to be ambitious because we are in desperate times, and although we have to be outward-looking, campaigning and engaging, we have to lead by example and put our own house in order by cutting the council's carbon footprint to the irreducible number. That's why the plan sets out what we will be doing with our buildings, vehicles and consumption, and the actions needed to reduce carbon emissions in regards to transport, energy, consumption, waste and water. We need to convince each other that we have all a part to play by reducing our own carbon emissions, by walking more and remembering the 4 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle and repair. Reading the report and trying to highlight the importance issues and what are essential actions, I think you will find and soon realise that they're virtually all vital and all need to be done if we are to save the planet. So by way of introduction, I'll leave it there. I'm sure together with the officers we will endeavour to answer any questions or accept any contribution that the committee has to make. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps I could start then. If I could take you to page 31, paragraph 20. Please could you outline how the public consultation was carried out and what the response was and how you used those responses?
Well, I have to say, I mean, the consultation was not as expansive as we would have wished because of COVID. So there were time constraints. We needed to get the document put together, and we accept that we would have preferred to have a more extensive and widening consultation. But I can just reassure the committee that the consultation is ongoing. And as I said in my opening remarks, if there is anybody who's got anything to contribute, that's why the document has to be adaptable and it has to be a live document.
Okay, thank you. Nobody else coming in? Karen.
Thank you. Can I refer to page 32, paragraphs 32 and 33, the comments from the Finance Officer? The report states that there are likely to be significant financial implications of the action plan. So what are the financial cost implications of these actions, and how do we know that all the actions of the action plan will be financially affordable to the council going forward to 2030?
Well, I think we will have to obviously keep that under consideration. I think we will have to invest, but there are other reports coming forward that we will need to sort of present bids where there are grants available, that we need to sort of present bids and get the money that we can from the grants that are available to make it affordable. I mean, some of the money we might have to allocate, but we would have to look at, all funding streams that would assist in us delivering on the plan and the action plans. Yeah, do you want to answer that, Jennifer?
Just to add, each individual scheme will be costed and will be brought forward depending on obviously the cost. But just to confirm that the team are making several bids at the moment to get some external income in, external funding in, to deliver some of these schemes. But they will be presented as soon as we've got them costed up. We'll bring them forward.
Yeah, I look forward to listening to those in the future when it comes back in front of scrutiny. Thank you.
Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm on page 41, the fourth paragraph from the bottom, which talks about the fact that we cannot deliver this target alone, which you mentioned a little earlier. What steps have we taken to engage with partners such as LCC, the Wildlife Trust, schools and other sectors in developing the plan? Have they committed to the actions already?
Well, I just have to repeat what I've said. I mean, there is a constant consultation going on, and I know the emergency climate tax group have received presentations and have discussed various schemes, opportunities, initiatives, and have all contributed to going into the action plan. So yeah, I mean, you know, we're signed up. I mean, I think there is. I mean, I think if there ever was any climate emergency deniers about, I mean, surely the most recent events in Western America, you know, in Canada, the sort of sky-high temperatures that are being experienced across the world, surely they are convinced. So, I mean, I keep coming back to what I said in my opening remarks. We are all in this together, and we have to all work with all the partners. So the Climate Emergency Task Group, who are doing a tremendous job, are receiving presentations and engaging on a constant basis.
Okay, thank you. Can I take to page 42 and the third paragraph from the bottom, which refers to timescales? These have been categorised as short, medium and long term. Are there any other more specific milestones to help the programme manage and deliver the action plan over the next 10 years?
I think, Chair, that's to come. I mean, the action plans are there. We've identified that some of them will be short term, medium term and long term. I think as the Director has referred to, I mean, each of these actions will have to be developed further so that you know, the projects sort of put some flesh on the bones, and for us to sort of come, you know, to explain to council and to the committee exactly what progress that we are making and how we're measuring. I mean, there's got to be that constant measuring.
Okay, thank you. We shall look forward to you coming back again. Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. There are over 100 actions in the action plan. How smart, specific, measurable, achievable and realistic do you think they are?
Well, I hope they're all achievable, because the alternative is unthinkable. But I don't know if Neil would want to say anything on that.
Yes, thank you. As Jennifer mentioned before, each of the actions are going to be looked at in a lot more detail to flesh out proper timescales, cost-benefit analysis, etc. So a lot of the sort of smart targets you're referring to, more detail will follow in the next few weeks and months on each of these. But we are looking at making sure that all the actions do follow that smart template.
Thank you.
Okay, Karen.
Yeah, carrying on from that, can you explain the action, how the action plan is to be monitored and managed to ensure the review and delivery of each of the actions?
For me, thank you. As I said, over the next couple of weeks, months, we will put more detail to each of the actions. We will then follow a systematic approach of identifying key performance indicators, risks, etc. for each of those actions and follow those through with the timescales.
And just to add, the Green Agenda is part of the corporate plan, So we have corporate measures that we measure as part of the corporate plan and report once a quarter. So that will be in all the performance. We've got a performance management system for each of those corporate plans. So that will be incorporated.
And just finally, we'll also be referring back to the climate emergency group as well, which will meet nearly every month to report back any progress.
Okay, thank you. Kath.
Thank you, Chair. What role can elected members have in champion and helping tackle the climate emergency?
Well, I think we all have a responsibility to, first of all, champion what needs to be done. I think in my opening remarks, I said that as individuals, we can show an example just by perhaps, walking, if it's less than 5 kilometres, but perhaps walking instead of taking the car, recycling, reusing and repairing and reducing the number, our consumption. Looking at, I mean, it is a massive issue. I mean, and we've got to look at, what energy we use to heat our homes. I think that, with new builds, we're going to have to look at that closely in the planning and see that there are proper, reductions in carbon emissions proposed. But other than that, I mean, I think that at every opportunity, we've got to broadcast and promote what we're trying to achieve with the climate change. And I think, we've all got to do our bits in that regard. And I think the elected members have got a major role to play in that.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. There's much members can do already. For instance, petitioning government, petitioning MPs and things like that for looking at stuff. And obviously the climate stuff goes beyond the boundaries of South Ribble, so they can encourage their friends who live outside of the borough. That we're all members are members of committees. For instance, the Scrutiny Committee can play a big part in it. I mean, it would be great if Scrutiny Committee could bring developers to this platform and ask them what they're doing as well, because at the moment they're lagging behind. Personally, I think for profit rather than for their moral obligation. Planning is another issue that we have at the moment as well. Obviously, to get anything through planning, to change supplementary planning documents takes an age, and the more support we'd get for that, the better that would happen. Thank you.
And can I add about the community hubs as well? There's some things that can be done in the hubs and action plans on looking at climate change and air quality. And I know some of the areas have put things on the plan like living walls. So there is opportunities as well there to make a contribution.
Okay, thank you. Michael.
Thanks, Chairman. As the Council reviewed its investment strategy, supply chains and procurement models to give due consideration to climate change impacts?
If I can just come in there, it is within the action plan that we will be doing that. We have already had initial discussions with procurement over how we can look at the purchasing system and make it as green as possible. So that process has started, and we'll be following that through as part of the action plan as well.
I think we would be looking at the procurement in a number of different ways. I mean, we've got the social value clauses in there, and I think, added to that, we will have, the climate changes clauses in there. I think that's, something essential that we've got to do when we're procuring contracts.
Yeah, just today I had a conversation about single-use plastics at our janitorial on procurement. So there is going to be some information in there about single-use plastics and to make sure that the suppliers are looking at that and that we would be considering looking at procurement in relation to single-use plastics and what they can do about that.
Okay, thank you. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Again, following on from Michael's question, how does the action plan link with the council's community wealth building strategy in promoting local procurement, jobs, community action and social value, and how will this be monitored in the future?
Well, it's in it. I mean, I think we have repeatedly said is that we don't work in terms of portfolios in silos. I mean, the corporate plan is clear on what we're trying to achieve, and we have to work, together. I mean, the action plan that we're putting forward today clearly is connected with the social value and the community wealth building that we're trying to achieve. So, in presenting this plan, I mean, anything that we can do in terms of procurements, or indeed examining different ways, as I said at the outset, how we can achieve our plan and reduce carbon emissions. I mean, we've got to be engaged. I mean, I think within the report it talks about increasing low carbon jobs. And I think that's what we've got to engage with, the green agenda, and see where there are jobs that are being created, where, that do help us in tackling the climate change, is that we've got to be in the forefront of directing, contractors and anybody else who we're working with to make sure that they are partners in us achieving what we're trying to achieve in this, and indeed the community wealth building.
If I can just add there, some of the elements have always been looked at from the procurement side of things. One of the other actions in there is to look at working with the local colleges to make sure there's courses being provided locally to train people up in how to maintain and install the new renewable technologies coming through. And again, that will help generate jobs in the area and to keep work locally as well.
Okay. Thank you. Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I don't need to ask this question because it was going to be about how the community hubs can take things forward regarding climate emergency, and Jennifer has answered that perfectly already. Thank you.
Stephen.
Does the council have the appropriate level of skills, knowledge and capacity in place to deliver the action plan?
I think there will always be a question over capacity, and if your intentions and ambitions are such, then you have to constantly review whether or not you've got the capacity to deliver particular plans. I believe that, we're that committed to this particular plan, is that we would have to, either within existing resources or with additional resources, if needed, then we would have to recruit to ensure that we've got that capacity to deliver. But I refer to the responses previously when we spoke about short term, medium term, and long term. And I think that when we develop the actions further that are proposed within the plan, is that we will have to keep under constant review whether we've got the capacity, and as I say, how much will depend on whether we can get grants and funding streams. But I think it's something that we've got to keep on going. We've just got to make sure that we do have the capacity to deliver on it. I keep saying, I mean, this isn't a sort of this isn't a whim. I mean, this is saving the planet. It's living. So yeah, I mean, it's constant review. I understand the question, I do really, but we've got to meet that capacity if we're going to deliver.
My next question, how will the council deliver its commitments for the wider borough, because we made a commitment not just for the council but for the borough overall without any legal powers, because at the moment in time the climate commitment isn't a legal thing, it's just a commitment. So how will it do this without any legal powers?
Well, I think there has been changes in central governments. I think there has been an attitude change across the country. Where there aren't legal powers, I mean, I think what we've got to try and do is convince, persuade, and get that collaboration, argue our case about what we're trying to achieve, and convince those that may be doubting it or maybe pushing back on it, that it's essential that they do engage with us. I think that you know, there is an absence of legal powers in a number of things that the council does, but that doesn't stop us trying or endeavouring, you know, to achieve what the council wants to achieve and what's in the corporate plan. So it's one of those things, you can't legislate for every eventuality, can you? But you have to be able to adapt and persuade and, you know, go around pursue different avenues to get what you want in the end.
If I can add to that, short term, we have specific measures within the action plan where it's about engagement with communities, the businesses, to encourage them to move that forward. We're going to improve the delivery of information through the websites. We're going to start staff focus groups, community focus groups, get involved with the hubs, the schools, and start that mind change. Promote grants if they're available to members of the public. Lobby government to make changes, to make them statutory. So those are the sorts of short-term measures we're looking at introducing.
Yeah, thank you again.
I just want to add as well that we might not have those legal powers, but other authorities do have powers that we don't. So, I mean, Lancashire County Council is the Highways Authority. They can help by installing signs, for instance, directing lorries away from populated areas, sorting out traffic lights instead of us having to do it by ourselves as councillors. So I don't think that because we haven't got the powers, we can't influence other people that have.
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions from members not on committee? Oh, sorry. So I have two members on committee who'd like to ask questions. Can I take Karen first, then Michael?
Thank you. It was just the summary of actions from the Air Quality Action Plan 2018 on page 64. I'd be interested to have an update on what successes and actions have been achieved since then, because I was part of putting this together, and it was just an update on what's been a success and what actions have been achieved so far, Jennifer.
Yeah, we can do that. We can provide a written update for scrutiny. Yeah.
Thank you.
If I can, the annual report is due shortly, and that will have an update within there where we're up to.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. It was something that I brought up at the beginning of the meeting. So we previously had a commitment given to us that a members' learning hour will be held on the Climate Emergency Action Plan before it's presented to full council, which I think would be really helpful in terms of engaging with members and getting their involvement in this moving forward. So I'm just wondering if that could be again confirmed that will take place. Thank you.
So can I just bring in the Chief Executive?
Sorry, Mick. Yeah, we'll get on with organising that, Michael, prior to the council meeting.
Do you want to add to that? No.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, but he's above your pay grade, so yeah. Karen. Right, before I get my hand slapped, is there anybody else on committee who has any other questions? No, in which case, any members not on committee? No. Could I then ask for Darren to take us through recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Just some common threads from the discussion for your recommendations. The committee thanks the Cabinet member, lead member, director and officers for attending and answering questions. The committee commends the Climate Emergency Member Working Group for developing the draft action plan. The committee welcomes the reassurance that partners have been engaged in the development of the action plan. The committee looks forward to more information on each of the actions, including financial appraisal and smart indicators being drawn up. The committee encourages members to take personal responsibility in helping to tackle the climate emergency. The committee requests an update on the air quality strategy, and finally the committee thanks the commitment to provide a member briefing before council. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Would anybody like to add to or remove any of those? No, in which case are those agreed? Thank you. That then takes us on to item 8, urgent decisions. This report is for note. Do we have any queries on those? I do have one, in that there seem to be quite a number of urgent decisions now coming forward. I would hope that these are the exception to the rule and not becoming the norm, because scrutiny is not being given the opportunity to call some of these in. So I would just request that you perhaps bear that in mind. Thank you.
Chair, if I could. Yeah, some of the legislation, again, we're waiting for the detail, but some of the legislation will drop away fairly shortly, so those powers won't exist.
I now intend to bring forward item 10 because we have Mark Lester and Rachel Salter phoning in on Teams to assist Councillor Tomlinson. So we do have a motion to exclude press and public. However, could I just ask for advice as to whether this should actually not be in the public domain?
Chair, if I could just help, I did speak with the Council's monitoring officer before the meeting, and he felt that the report could be considered in public, so there is no need to exclude press and public for this item. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, on the advice of the monitoring officer, I then intend to proceed without excluding press and public, and would invite Councillor Tomlinson to present the report.
Before we do that, can I ask why it was actually put into part 2 in the first place then? Because it seems like the default position is almost, let's push any item that seems to have anything that's remotely controversial, let's push it into part 2, and it should be the other way. Let's have it in part 1 unless there's a really strong reason. It doesn't appear on this case in particular that there was any strong reason for this to be considered as a part 2 item. And clearly we need to be as open and transparent with the public as we possibly can be.
Okay, the leader would like to come in.
Cheers, Chair. Obviously, I hope the committee all understand, and the wider council, is that the authority is more transparent now than it's been in probably about 20 years, and we publish everything. If we, as I've said at the council meetings, Chair, we do everything in our power to challenge any report being in part 2. The officers placed us in part 2 because there was financial information within the report that they felt that may be confidential. However, Councillor Tomlinson challenged that, spoke to the finance officers, and they've decided that it could be published. But as I say, everything possibly goes into part 2, so goes into part 1, and we will only, as we've continually said, put anything into part 2 when it absolutely has to be. And you'll notice yourself, Chair, that we've made every effort over the last few months to make that the case. Thank you.
Okay, if I could invite Councillor Tomlinson then to present the report.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really sorry that Councillor Green thinks this is a controversial item, because I thought we were all on board with this project now. Certainly it seems the people of Leyland are. I'm happy to present this as what is an exciting time for the project, really. Users of the park will have noticed that the occupiers of the popular coffee shop have moved out of the building now. and are in a temporary structure in the courtyard. I had the opportunity to go up today, and I'm pleased to say that Kathy was busy, people enjoying the sunshine, so that was nice to see. And there is also some protective fencing going up, which will restrict some access to parts of the building. Having read the report, you'll see that the tenders are due in next week for the work. So again, that'll be a really exciting time in the project. Can I just point out that there have been some small changes to the internal layout. Having had a look at the project again, there's been a design review which will hopefully save us a little bit of money and allow at the same time for the building to be used more efficiently now that we've had the time to look at it again. I'm sure that people will be interested in the time frame that's published at bullet point 25. So that's what we're looking to do and how we're looking to move this project forward. And then you'll see some of the thoughts about the future operation of the hall. With that, as I said, it's an exciting time. It'll be even more exciting next week, I hope. And we throw ourselves open. I'm glad to have the support of people who are more technically minded than me and know some of the more intimate details of what's going on in this building. But other than that, I'm happy to answer questions. And just one final thing, in the notes on on the recommendations of the Scrutiny Committee that have not yet been carried forward. One was a visit to Word and Hall for the committee, which clearly we've not been able to do because of COVID. As restrictions are going to be lifted next week, we can talk to the members of the committee about how they might want to have a visit to the hall in as safe a manner as we can and let you have a look round, which I'm sure will be of great interest to people.
Okay, thank you. Karen.
Thank you, Chair. I refer to page 101, paragraph 21. Reference is made to the approved scheme budget being based on estimates. So how confident are you that the project will be delivered within the current budget, and what will happen if the tenders exceed the approved budget?
So we did set a budget some nearly 2 years ago now. The world's very different, and we'll have to wait and see. Post-COVID and post-Brexit, there's a report going to Council tomorrow, Cabinet, tomorrow, that talks about the building and construction sector being very buoyant. And I'm chair of governors at a local school where we were having some work done over the summer, and the costs have come back at something like 17% more than they were originally budgeted for. And Lancashire County Council just say post-COVID, post-Brexit, costs are going up. So we will have to wait and see what the tenders come back at. Contractors know what we want to deliver. They know what our budget is. And it will be very interesting to see what we get back. What will happen if it's over? We'll have to reconsider the project. We'll speak to other members about it. And then we'll have to make a decision on whether you have two options, haven't we? Do we deliver a smaller, less impressive project for the original budget, or do we agree to increase the budget somewhat in light of what's happened to the world in the last 2 years? I'm not going to judge what that decision will be, and who knows, perhaps the tenders will come back on budget and we can all crack on smiling. But we have to be realistic about the potential for that not to be the case. But let's wait and see what happens next week.
Thank you, Matthew. I look forward to looking at the budget and seeing how the project's going forward. Thank you.
Michael.
Thanks, Chairman. I would refer Councillor Tomlinson to paragraph 25 on page 102 and just asking for confirmation that the project remains on track to be fully completed in advance of the Leyland Festival in June 2022. Thank you.
That's always been my ambition, and the timeline that's there still refers to that. There are always unknown unknowns, as somebody once said, but as far as we're concerned, that remains the target. Obviously, Leyland Festival next year, God willing, will be a bigger event than ever before. It'll be the first one for 2 years, and it'll coincide with the Jubilee celebrations. So let's all hope it is open, but the timeline there is quite clear. That's what we're aiming for, and at this stage, there's no reason to think we won't make that.
Good. I'm rather looking forward to rattling my jewellery at whoever is performing, as John Lennon once said to the Queen. Well, there we go. Can I take you to page 102, paragraph 27 onwards? What are the future revenue implications of operating Worden Hall, and is the model still to break even and create a surplus?
It is. The model hasn't changed, so we're still hoping that we'll be able to do that. In fact, some of the review of the use of the place has freed up another meeting room upstairs. We were going to have a commercial kitchen upstairs, which we've now moved downstairs. So those operations should still be able to aspire to what was presented to council well before COVID. So long term, we've always said this needs to try and wash its face. It's a grade 2 listed building that we own and has been neglected for a long time. And we were really clear that the option to do nothing wasn't an option, but we were also clear that we wanted this to be able to sustain itself in the long term, and that remains the ambition.
Okay, thank you. Stephen.
David, could I just...
sorry.
The model's changed slightly, hasn't it, Matt? So we've tried to incorporate some fixed rentals into the model, so there is the opportunity for office use on some of the upper floors. That will get some guaranteed income. So in that respect, again, we're just trying to move the model around, meet some of the demand that we know is out there, and manage some of the risk in terms of the rental.
And I thank the Chief Executive for that. And it reminds me there's one other change as well, where the coffee shop is now was envisaged to be a bar for functions, and we're now suggesting that we use that as a retail space to add to the craft spaces that are all around. And again, that should bring us in some guaranteed income.
Right, sorry, Stephen.
Thank you, Chair. I was just writing that down as fast as I could. Can I refer to page 103, paragraph 42? An additional backlog of maintenance has been identified. What was this not identified as part of earlier survey and preparatory work?
I'm going to ask Mark to answer that question if he's, I'm sure he's listening with interest.
Thanks. I'm going to ask Rachel to answer that question actually, because she cited on the technical detail of the project, so she knows exactly which items are included in that backlog maintenance heading. So Rachel, do you want to just cover that?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, no problem. Yes, they were identified originally, but as Councillor Tomlinson has alluded to, some of the condition surveys were done nearly 2 years ago, so we've undertaken an update on that. So some of the repairs are a lot more significant because the buildings remained empty than we were anticipating. So, for example, rather than just undertaking some repairs on the roof, we are going to have to re-roof the building now, which has obviously had a significant impact on the cost of those activities.
Is that due to the building remaining empty and not being in use, or is that just because it's just been left derelict as such?
Well, yeah, a combination of both, really. I mean, a building that's not in use does tend to get damp, and there will be other issues that are caused from not being in use.
All right, thank you.
So could I just come in there? Could this not have been foreseen?
I think it's Mark Lester. It's very difficult to quantify, as Rachel has said, what the additional cost will be of leaving a building empty for any period of time. And there's all sorts of other factors that, again, Rachel's alluded to in terms of the weather, undetected water ingress, deterioration of timber window frames, and all sorts of things. So it would be very, very difficult to quantify in advance. It's only actually the process that we've gone through of the detailed condition surveys as part of the design process that have identified these additional works that are required. So they were foreseen in as much as they were picked up in the initial building survey, but the additional building surveys that we've undertaken as the schemes progressed have identified additional issues. So they've probably developed over that period of time since the original condition surveys.
Yeah, it's probably worth adding as well that we've done some additional intrusive investigatory work on the building as well, which has obviously exposed some conditions that weren't necessarily visible to the eye at the design stage that the original cost plan was developed.
Okay, again, if I could just come back in. So why did you think it was necessary to do some additional investigation?
Well, it's always necessary within the design process anyway. So it's kind of an evolving process and a kind of an iterative process as we progress the design.
So just to elaborate on that, the level of work that we do becomes more involved at each stage. So, for instance, at the very beginning of a scheme, everything may well be a desktop exercise to establish a headline cost, etc. That was followed up with a condition survey. As we've got closer to going out to tender and defining the actual design and the works that are required, we'll go to another level of survey, which is the intrusive survey work, and that's picked up some additional works as well.
Right. Okay. I'll leave it there. Mal, final question.
Page 27, strategic assessment. How is the strategic assessment developed? Are members involved and how is its performance measured and monitored? Oh, sorry. Oh, right, yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. What progress will we see when the next update is provided in October 2021?
Well, providing the tender process does go ahead successfully next week, people should be well on with the work. If you look at the time frame, we would expect the contract to be awarded in August and for them to start by the end of that month. So we should see contractors on work on site and a real, something that people can see is actually going on, rather than the stuff that's been going on at the moment that tend to be inside the building, getting ready for the contract being awarded.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any questions from members not on committee? Sorry, leader would like to come in.
Cheers, Chair. It's just to bring the committee back to reiterate something Matthew mentioned about construction inflation and the real concerns that the council and the authorities across Lancashire, across the UK have now in respect to the cost of construction. There's been a meeting today at the City Deal Executive, and the Lancashire County Council, as the accountable body, their single biggest concern for the City Deal at the moment with the live projects is construction inflation. There is significant cost increases across the board. It's yet to be absolutely determined, Chair, if that's down to Brexit or if that's down to COVID or if it's a mixture of both. And the professional view is that it is a mixture of both. But we can, for example, there's a huge shortage of timber. There's a huge shortage of other construction materials. And the only way that the market deals with this is by increasing cost. And so it is a significant concern across the board, across the county, about construction inflation. But Matthew and the team are doing everything they possibly can with the officers to make sure this has the minimal impact on the project. But it needs to be the committee needs to consider this, and the council needs to consider this moving forward.
Yeah, there's an issue with concrete as well, Paul, isn't there? That's because of HS2. So,
and drivers.
Yeah. So all sorts of issues.
Just to add to that, the concrete that we use for the overflow car park at Worden Park, we can't get They come in modular sheets with the hexagonal gaps in. People who've been will recognise what I'm talking about. You can't get them anywhere for love nor money because they've all been used for Brexit lorry parks. Whether they'll ever be needed or not is a moot point that we won't know, but that's what we're being told. You can't get replacement ones. So we live in a very fluid, there's two things going on that are likely to change the landscape, for want of a better word, more than anybody would have thought. And we just have to see where we get to. We'll find out next week, won't we? We'll be wiser.
Right, okay. I think Councillor Smith indicated.
Just a comment, Chair, really. I'm sure that it's going to increase the value of recyclable products, which should be used more and more, particularly recyclable plastics, of which there was a huge glut of, and it became to be worth nothing. So there's this technology available for using those sort of products. With regard to sort of extra surveys, the first thing you do when you're looking at things like that, you make sure you've got a foundation, and the next thing you do, you make sure you've got a roof.
Councillor Smith, you have a question?
That doesn't change.
Is that it? There's no question. Right. If I could ask Darren to take us through recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. Just following some of the threads, potential recommendations could include the committee thanks the Cabinet member for attending his report. The committee welcomes the progress being made and commitment to the timescale set out in the report, and the committee thanks the Cabinet member for the offer of a site visit. Thank you, Chair.
Would anybody like to add anything to those recommendations? No? Remove anything? No? Can we agree them? Thank you. As agreed. Sorry, if I can now move back to item 9, which is scrutiny matters. Item 9A, Lancashire County Council Health Scrutiny Committee. There has been one meeting since the County Council elections of the Health Scrutiny Committee, and that was effectively a workshop to develop a work programme for the coming year. So nothing really to enlighten you on that. 9B is meetings and training attended by Scrutiny Committee members. A number of us attended the scrutiny training with Dr. Steph Snape last week, which I think we all found very useful. And external training courses are available as well if anybody would like to attend any of those. 9C is the forward plan. The committee is invited to review the Cabinet forward plan for any items it might wish to consider in the future. And I think we have a number of items both on that and the Scrutiny Committee forward plan itself. Private sector landlords, I believe we have invited housing associations to attend already, so we'll be looking at that. Leisure is very much something that we would like a report on to come forward to our next Scrutiny Committee. It will be 5 months after implementing the new structure, so a report on how it's going would be welcome. Shared services is something the committee would like to look at, have a report on. And then externally, climate emergency. I mean, we've covered quite a bit of that tonight, but we'd like to see what other people outside of the council are actually doing, and engagement with public and hard to reach groups. So committee okay with all of those? In which case, that, I believe, brings us to the end of the meeting. So if I could thank everybody for your attendance, everybody who's tuning in, either on Teams or watching on YouTube. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Chair.
I'll let you have those back for recycling, so just don't. Otherwise, they'll sit in the back of my car for 6 months before I clear it out again.